everyone, my name is Kyle Robisch and I'm an attorney here in Tampa. I work for a law firm called Bradley, Arant, Boult, Cummings, LLP. It's a pretty big law firm with offices from Washington, D.C. all the way to Texas and of course right here in Tampa. And I should say at the top, and this is pretty typical legalese, they shouldn't be surprised by that all opinions expressed here are mine and mine alone. And that includes my employer, Bradley Arant Boult Cummings. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I practice in several different legal areas, but above all, I'm a litigator. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but generally speaking, that means I represent clients in lawsuits, though I don't go to court quite as much as you'd think. Since my days doing high school debate, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. That's right, that means since I was basically a freshman in high school, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And a big part of that reason was high school extracurriculars. So I can trace where I am today, at 31 years old, all the way back to where you might be right now, or close to where you're going to be when I was a freshman and a sophomore in high school. Let me give you a little more background on myself. Personally, I moved to law growing up. I was born in Detroit, lived there for a while, and then my parents moved a couple of years later to Orlando, where I went to middle school, and then I ended up in Kansas City, go Chiefs, where I went to high school. My mom is a Gator, go Gators, and so am I. I graduated from the University of Florida with a political science and economics degree. Again, those are pretty typical degrees for folks who are pretty sure they want to go to law school, though people get all sorts of degrees in college and still go on to be lawyers. During my time at UF, I was president of the speech and debate team. I was in the student senate. I joined a fraternity, and I did a whole host of other collegiate involvement in different organizations. I even founded my own organization that took food from food banks, from restaurants on campus, and donated them at the end of the day through student volunteers to food banks around Gainesville. So a lot of the foundation for that involvement in college came from what I did in high school. I did a lot of student government, debate, and volunteered with a lot of student groups in high school. So, what you do now and the decisions you make now can really feed and provide a foundation for what you're going to do going forward, both in college, in grad school, if that's in your future, and then eventually out in the community. And involvement in high school and college really do mirror real life. No one just goes in, punches a clock, and goes home. That is to say, no one just does their job. Everyone is complex. There are a lot of aspects to what it means to be a professional today. Working professionals do a lot. They have families, they volunteer in their communities, they spend their weekends with friends and professional groups. So for me, that's bar associations, that's friend groups who go back to Gainesville or take trips together. So doing school full time, then also extracurriculars and other involvement, community involvement on the side is exactly what it's like, as a professional as well. From UF, I went to Vanderbilt Law School up in Nashville, and while I was there, I also coached the undergraduate debate team, and I was on something called Law Review, which is basically a journal for law students where we write our own what we call notes, and then review and edit articles from some of the top law professors around the country to get published in our journal. Let me take a moment here to comment on debate, whether it's policy debate, Lincoln Douglas debate, parliamentary debate, public forum debate, whatever form of debate is available to you. It's an excellent introduction into what lawyering could look like. I highly, highly recommend that if you're interested in becoming a lawyer, you should consider doing debate of some form. I did it, as I mentioned, in high school, in college, and I traveled around the country in high school and college doing debate. And I even coached the undergraduate debate team at Vandy, as I mentioned. So it's the common thread through my high school, college, and law school years. And as we'll talk about in a second, it kind of gives a good foundation for what being a lawyer might look like. After I graduated law school, I clerked for a judge. So basically, I was a legal aid to a federal judge in Orlando for 2 years after law school. So I attended every hearing with the judge, drafted all of the orders, helped the judge during trial, helped him figure out what decisions he should make, how he should evaluate briefs, what the law was, what the facts might be, helped him make sentencing recommendations. So it was a really great crash course in the law. You're basically the right-hand man or woman for a federal judge for 2 years. After that, I went and worked for a large law firm in DC for 4 years, obviously in the nation's capital, and I was an environmental attorney there. So what that means is for me, helped companies and governments litigate and build large infrastructure projects like railways, highways, port facilities, mines, things of that nature. Those projects require a lot of permits, and a lot of folks are interested in how those are built, where those are built, what conditions are attached to the building of those things. And so my full-time job was helping clients get those permits, challenge those permits, build a project. Now here in Tampa, I do some of the same work at Bradley, the law firm I mentioned that I now work at. I also have a broader practice now than I did in DC. Not only do I do that environmental work and work on some infrastructure projects like I mentioned from before, but I also represent companies and individuals in all sorts of business disputes in state and federal courts. And we'll talk more about what that looks like in a second. So, if you're listening to this, you might be interested in what it's like being a lawyer. So let me tell you a little bit about that. Every day is different. Really, every day is different. Sometimes I'll work on the same matter for the same client for 10 hours or for 5 hours. Other days I will work on 8 different matters and spend a half an hour on each, and then another 3 matters on the side where I spend 10 minutes on calls or emails. Every day is different. Every client's problem is different and changes throughout the course of their representation. As I mentioned at the top, I'm rarely in court. If you think you want to be in court all the time, being a public defender or state or local prosecutor might be the best routes for doing that. I'd recommend interning for one of those offices and seeing if you like it. They're fascinating positions and they do really, really important, good work, and they are in court very often. But if I'm not in court, then what am I doing? I'm maximizing my clients' position against their opponent, and you do that a lot of different ways. So most of the cases I'm involved with are about businesses or individuals disputing whether they fulfilled a contract or violated business rules and laws. I also advise companies and governments interested in building large infrastructure projects like I mentioned, like roads, rail lines, and export terminals. So that practices a lot of litigation over whether major permits, environmental permits to limit air or water pollution or to build in a certain space, for example, should be granted or denied or reconsidered. You do a lot of research, so I research case law, regulations, and rules to see how they fit or don't fit our clients' positions. I write and argue motions, so we ask in a motion for the court to do or not do something, or to order the other side to do or not do something. I do a lot of negotiation with opposing counsel. And I review documents from our client or from the other side to prepare case strategies, some of that stuff that we get through discovery, like I mentioned. I also do a fair amount of taking or defending depositions. A deposition, again, is another fancy word for just asking witnesses under oath what they know or don't know to learn their positions and information before any trial. And then I argue pretrial motions, so these put me in court. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's not uncommon. Pretrial motions are just exactly what they sound like, asking the court to do something related to something before trial. So about witness testimony, about discovery, about relief that one side might want while they're waiting for the trial to go through. Should the court dismiss a case? All of these things do get argued in court, but usually just to the judge, not to a jury. And then the piece that people don't really think about, and this is true for anyone, but I spend a lot of time trying to get business. So this involves meeting folks in the community, presenting at conferences, writing articles about an area of the law that applies to our potential clients or our current clients. Most jobs, law included, have a sales component, and that's just the truth. You're not only selling your client's position in court as a lawyer, but you're selling yourself. You have to sell yourself first before you get to sell the client's position. So you basically have to convince someone why they should trust you with their high stakes case or their very important matter to them. And that at the end of the day is, based on relationships, reputation, and some sales ability. So I mentioned at the top, most cases for most lawyers don't go to trial. Why not? Because most people see Law and Order and think that's what it's like to be a lawyer. Well, by some estimates, more than 95% of cases settle before they get to trial, and then a chunk of the ones that don't settle before or settle during trial, But why? That's really because companies and people prefer to negotiate a settlement whereby one party agrees to act differently. So, for example, not sell competing goods, partially fulfill a contract, or not advertise in a certain way, or just pay the other party some amount of requested damages. Settlement is often faster, cheaper, and more certain than trial. And that's because parties control settlement. They don't need to put on a trial, and they aren't relying on jurors or a judge to decide the outcome. Most everything is in their control. So for a settlement, put the parties together in a room, or you negotiate over the phone or through email, or some combination of those three ways, and you come to an agreement, and the parties can mutually agree on most of the issues. And when that happens, you have the ability to settle and then not have to put your case in the hands of a judge or jury. So you get a lot more control as a client, or as a plaintiff and defendant, over what a settlement does and what it can result in. So if you want to be a lawyer, what are the essential skills? And I think you can kind of take away some of that from what I just mentioned I do every day. So writing, above all, is the number one skill for lawyers. Lawyers spend most of their time writing letters, briefs, emails, memos, proposed legislation, proposed testimony, everything. You write constantly. You're writing articles about the areas of law that you're trying to become an expert in, or that you're trying to pitch potential clients about. You're writing emails to your clients explaining what happened in court or what their options are. If you're a junior associate, so a young lawyer, you're writing research summaries and memos for the partners. Everything is writing from when you walk in the door day one to the end. So you must like writing, and you have to work to become good at it. Research is also important. You must like researching cases, and even more so thinking about how to creatively use your research for your client. And then people skills. You're persuading judges or jurors, negotiating settlements with opposing counsel, and working with a team of lawyers on your own side. So you must like and have some skill, hopefully, for working with people. So writing, research, and reading goes into those two as well. And people skills are the things that any lawyer or prospective lawyer should kind of be honing on and be interested in doing every day if they want to be a lawyer. But how did I end up here? What did I do to actually get where I am today? So like I said, debate and other extracurricular involvement really put me on the path. Debate, student government, and other involvement kind of got me to think that I might like being a lawyer, and then kind of taught me that I would, and then helped give me the foundation to become a good lawyer. I liked arguing, but it was really more than that, and it should be more than that for any prospective lawyer, and certainly for a lawyer that will like their job. Above all, I enjoy working with people and creatively solving problems, and those are a lawyer's two most valuable skill sets. If you're interested in becoming a lawyer, see if you can shadow or work for one. I did exactly that in high school and college. I worked for a small local law firm in Kansas City as an office assistant. I wasn't doing anything very advanced, but I was exposed to legal filings, I attended hearings, and I got to pick the brains of all the attorneys that I worked with. And I learned a lot about what the practice of law was, and more importantly, wasn't that way. Get involved too. Join student and community groups and take a leadership position in those groups. Learning how to work with and lead people is a valuable skill set. Involvement is the only hands-on training you can really get in that regard. Expose yourself to as many people, experiences, and situations as possible. So my client service foundation came from, and I'm not exaggerating, working at Einstein Brothers. I learned how to prioritize what people cared about, how to interact with people, how to make someone who's having a bad day have a good one, and how to do all that while working in a fast-paced food service environment. High school and college debate taught me about creatively working with and testing the limits of rules and laws, and that's at the end of the day what you're doing as a lawyer. Joining student groups and creating my own taught me how to build a career, rapport with people, and credibility in the community. In all of my experience, those hourly jobs, student group involvement, joining professional groups, showed employers and clients that I care about my community, bettering myself, and becoming the best person and lawyer I can be. Doing these things and learning from those experiences are the single best ways to build a foundation for the next step, whether it's college, law school, or your first job. So, to wrap up, I'd offer these following observations. No matter what you want to do, being a lawyer or not, learn more about it. Take the time right now, when you have the opportunity to plan and learn, to intern in the industry that you're interested in, to ask people with interesting careers to go to coffee, or spare 30 minutes for a Zoom meeting to learn about their career and their background. To do that, you can follow people's bios on LinkedIn or online and just shoot them an email. People love talking about this stuff. Take a class about the subject you're interested in. For me, nearly every job or volunteer position started with me reaching out to someone already involved to learn more. And as I said, people love sharing their experiences, especially with someone interested in walking on the same path as them. I would say, especially for those interested in law school, it's important to do those things. Lots of folks go to law school because they like arguing or are vaguely interested in it, but I generally advise against this. Law school is expensive, it's intensive, and it's a 3-year serious commitment. It's best to expose yourself to the law and lawyers beforehand so you're sure that it's the career for you. I love my job and I find it enormously fulfilling, but it's an expensive mistake to make if you're not sure. There are lots of ways, as I mentioned, to learn about whether the law is right for you and whether you'll actually enjoy being a lawyer every day, because that's the most important thing. Finally, I'd say, again, no matter who you are and what you're interested in, find something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be your favorite thing in the world. Not everyone can play pro sports or design video games. Certainly I can't do either of those things, and I love both of them. But doing something fun that uses your skills for a purpose that you identify with turns a job into a career. I love lawyering, but the reason I love lawyering is because I love writing, I love working with people, and I love problem solving. Good luck finding your career. It's a big world full of amazing opportunity out there. And Tampa has a ton of all of that to offer right here, so I hope to see you out and about in the community.